All right, all right. Hello, hello. Welcome everyone back to a special destination happy hour show, but the destination is not what is special. I mean, we got great views out here. That's cool and all, but what's more important is the guest that we have on today. And I'm so glad to welcome Dylan into this chat. How you doing, Dylan, the star guest of this show?
I'm doing pretty good, sir. Why am I the star guest? I
I don't know.
don't.
You're up here with me. No, I was just throwing it out there. I'm kidding. We have obviously, as advertised, and I'm so thankful for these guys being here and taking the time to talk. I know they've been in spaces and a lot of other rooms discussing things of high importance, but it's just cool to get these guys on stream when they're available for the community to chat about. So, Buck, man, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Are you okay with these prices? Are you doing all right? I mean, yeah, I know
Yeah,
you're
well,
behind an avatar there. I know you never do that, so I just want to make sure you are physically all right.
I haven't roped yet, so that's good. Um, I think it was really funny. Somebody, I wrote this tweet basically saying, this is the SEC versus DeFi. Don't let them use subterfuge against us. And some, some RH Maxi wrote underneath it. Oh yeah, see now you're covering your tracks, like trying to, after you funded Pulse and PulseX for so long. And I'm like, what do you call FUD that actually turns out to be warranted and accurate? I don't know. So in a way, there's like a little bit of vindication here. That in that I have advised people to be cautious and prudent about things, and now I think the valuations start to look very compelling. I was saying this to Dylan yesterday we were chatting privately. So yeah, if you like your Pulse and your PulseX, you should like it as it goes lower. This is all information that we all kind of knew and expected. We knew that there was going to be some sort of issue at the SEC. We have confirmation of that. Really, what else can they throw at us? Not too much more. So I feel pretty good.
Good. That's kind of where I'm at. It's just like if there's a black swan slash peak FUD, like when does that happen? Because what are we doing right now? Um, Alex, man, like I said in the green room, good to have you back. Thank you for coming on. I know your time is so valuable, but it's cool to have you, at least come on and provide your insights to a lot of this stuff. How you been? I know. I think the last time we chatted might have been before even Hedron even launched. So, how you been?
Oh, been good, man. Just been constantly doing something, seems like. But but yeah, doing all right. The news is what it is, but doing all right despite it. I think we're all doing somewhat okay here. So
Yeah, and yes, Alpha Alex is here, and Alpha Buck too. So before I get this thing started and just hand over topics to these guys and just have them go at it, I'm going to run through the chat, after I hand it off. But I
Oh, we lost you.
yeah, we lost your voice.
sorry, the wind and stuff was absolutely terrible the last time I was in Buck Spaces, but I'm gonna echo this again. If you're and really they've been on Fridays, I guess midday East Coast, but if you're not in those and you're complaining about say Richard Hart not streaming and not getting your helping of alpha, what are you even doing? Like, get in those spaces. I'm not saying this just because of Buck. I'm saying it because we have the likes of Funding Jim and so many different minds coming in to these spaces to offer their insights. He and Moon King had one, I guess, meme coins are not my thing, but it was a very enlightening space about 2-3 weeks ago. Get in there and, just take that knowledge in, because like I said, if you're mad about, where's Richard, why is he not streaming? We kind of could have guessed. I guess my guess was proven correct, and maybe a few others on this panel, but yeah, get in those spaces, guys. And as RH Max says in chat there, so much value to be had from those. So I guess let's get into the topic of the past 48, 72 hours, whatever it is by now. This whole SEC thing. I know there was a huge space or multiple huge spaces on, I think it was Monday. Buck had one, I guess, late night, which was tailored to his time. I tried to listen to as much as I could out of all of them, but I just want to go, I guess, round and round. Start with you, Buck. I think we share kind of similar viewpoints on this. Is that the main crux of it? If I'm just like throwing generalities out there, like 12 million of misused funds or misappropriated, whatever, it could be the main issue. Likely a fine. It's more civil. It's not criminal. Just, I guess, your quick take on that before we move on.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess what they're trying to say is that Pulse and PulseX were an ICO. Richard's used this verbiage about sacrifice to argue against the Howey test, to say it's not a security. So they're going to fight about that. But yeah, even still, that would just be a fine. There's plenty of incidences of similar things like EOS where they just pay a fine. It's a speed ticket for a guy like Richard. It's not a big deal. Doesn't impact price, guys. Shouldn't really upset anybody too much. That part. I think what is probably disturbing more so is that they've then tried to accuse him of fraud, saying he's misappropriated funds. So that's I think really disingenuous, and I think it'd be very hard for them to prove, because my view is that odds are Richard probably purchased those things, those watches, those cars out of some other pool of money. The guy's just because also of the timing of it all as well. He was accumulating these watches all through the bull market, right? So well before the sacrifices occurred. So, like, in a way, I think what they've accused him of is likely very wrong. And I'm not a lawyer, but like it feels like you should be able to sue the SEC back for making such a dumb false character accusation without being right about, or without having any evidence for it. So I think that part really is silly. $12 million of watches and cars might sound like a big number to you guys, but I mean, Charles Hoskinson flies around the world routinely on a private jet, right? That was in the news. Lots of people are very rich and they have all sorts of fancy cars and yachts and things like that. It's really quite ridiculous. I'm sure Gary Gensler's got some Rolexes. It's absolutely preposterous. So, I mean, they're going after Richard because he's made himself a target, basically, by making some videos where he's being kind of obtuse, purposefully, during what he called this outrage marketing phase. But I think that's kind of a pretty dumb thing that they're going after. I think it shows you that this thing is sort of a bit of a show trial type thing. It's not, they've picked what they think is an easy target. Somebody that wants.
Our government never does that, right? In the U.S.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So I just don't think the watch thing is legitimate. Even if Richard did take it out of the sacrifice, which I really doubt is likely. Like, I don't think that pisses me off personally. The community was explained what that was all about. It was, yes, Richard likes fancy stuff. He likes fashion and all that stuff, but he was ultimately trying to become famous because that was his strategy at the time in order to try to promote Hex and PulseChain, right? He thought that this was a good avenue, the best one he could come up with to do that, and he thought this was an effective way to do it. You know, sometimes you try marketing things and, you know, they don't work out the way you want them to. And then you move on. You know, so I don't think anybody in the community is going to be too pissed off about him buying a bunch of Rolexes to show off or buying a diamond. By the way, those things retain their value. So, you know, you could literally buy them, you know, show them off, and then turn around and probably sell them for about what you paid for them. Right. So it's not even like, you know, if they really wanted to say he misappropriated them, it's like, well, then they should still be on the company's balance sheet, you know, and, you know, he could just as easily turn around and sell them. And, you know, nothing's been misappropriated, guys. You know?
Technically assets.
Yeah, technically they're assets. And like the clothes, you know, I mean, the clothes are expensive for clothes, but they're just clothes. Even Dylan's got a Gucci tracksuit, which surprisingly he's not.
It's not hard to buy.
Are you in a humility phase, Dylan? Is that what's going on?
No, I just you know, I just didn't wear it today. I can go grab it.
No, that's okay. So I think the government here is just punching down on guys that they think all of crypto are going to help them punch down on, and to a large extent that has happened. And what I think we need to do now is flip that narrative, and kind of guilt people like Eric Wall into becoming kind of champions of us as a community because they care about crypto values. Because I think deep down inside, and I know this to be true because I've talked to Eric about it like in the past day or two. But like I know deep down inside, none of these guys like what the SEC is doing to us.
Yeah,
you know, because they understand, the smart ones understand inherently that this is bad for all of crypto, and they're on our side to that extent. So, so we really need to flip that narrative and really make this about, you know, this is the SEC versus DeFi. This is the SEC versus kind of native crypto. Not this is the SEC versus Richard Hart acting like an asshole with watches 2 years ago. You know, like that's not what we need to defend here. We need to defend our right to, you know, have our keys, control our crypto, to swap our crypto. You know, that what Uniswap did, which I'm sure we can talk about later, you know, to me, you know, is a good example that of this, because it should make crypto people a little bit sick to see, you know, Hex censored by Uniswap. Having said that, I understand why Uniswap is censoring it. You know, because they are coming after DeFi. Like, it kind of proves my point. So you know, they're coming at Uniswap is worried that Gary will come after them. So, you know, it turns into this sort of 1930s style situation where, you know, you don't, you know, you let them go after the communists, then you let them go after, you know, the gypsies, and then, you know, the Jews, and then, you know, oh wait, nobody's left to speak out against this, right?
Then they're at your doorstep.
Then they're literally, you know, yeah, you're basically you. And the guy who wrote that poem, by the way, was I believe a minister, a Christian minister, right? Huh. So, you know, he was the kind of guy that was, you know, pretty orthodox, and, you know, didn't really feel threatened, right? But ultimately, they came for him as well, right? Yeah, so I think this is really like. This is a thing that's going to go on for years. It's going to be fine. I think Richard's had a year to prepare for it. I'm sure he's got a strategy. But I think what we're doing is, you know, we're getting out in front and being vocal, and trying to just collaborate as much as possible together for the good of PulseChain.
Yeah, man, I agree with that. And, you know, the Uniswap thing, like, as you mentioned, we can get into that. I know Alex has his opinions, but it's funny that you mentioned, I guess, other influencers, you know, maybe having, we can hope, an aha moment. I think Eric Wall, you know, maybe tweeted about the Uniswap thing today, you know, kind of on the side of DeFi/Hex in a way. Even my eyes might have been deceiving me, but Coin Bureau, who has never mentioned Hex came out kind of against Uniswap with like a little clapback. So I thought that was interesting. Alex, I'd love to hear your take on, I guess, maybe less on the SEC situation. I'll talk all you want about that, but also this Uniswap thing and MetaMask, I guess, turning off swaps and why DeFi exists. DeFi exists, right? Because we're all here. You're two of the biggest minds in this Richard Hardy ecosystem. And, with all the news that we had, 48 hours ago or ish, you would think everything would be shut down. There'd be no more streams. Everybody would be in hiding, or Dylan would be out in some Gucci suit with some weird glasses and nose on. And yeah, so what are your thoughts on I guess SEC, and we can go into the Uniswap thing after that.
I think Buck's pretty much hit it on the head as far as the SEC is concerned. I don't really have a whole lot to add to that that's any particular value. I do kind of view this situation as, and I think it's important that we make it apparent that this is kind of the way things are. It's like, this is not like, like if the whole crypto ecosystem views us as like the like trailer park community that you don't really wish was part of your town, you probably wouldn't be too upset if the government showed up and was like, hey, you guys all have to clean your front yards out. Probably wouldn't be too upset about that. But this is more like the government coming to your trailer park community and holding a gun to everybody's head and, playing an execution. So I think that's a big deal. I think you'd probably care about that. And the rest of DeFi should care about that. So I think it's important that we make it apparent that that's kind of what this is, right? Because if this goes poorly, this is a precedent that the rest of DeFi doesn't want, for sure. And that's extra evident through the Uniswap stuff. I don't think as a community we've had the greatest relationship with the guys who run Uniswap. We carried them to relevance, and then they kind of didn't like that very much. And that's been evident for a long time. But I mean, I can't necessarily blame them in this situation with the way that the SEC complaint's worded, where it's filed, all that kind of stuff. Like if I was some big DeFi company that was trying to appeal to the types of people like the SEC, I probably would be doing similar things. To me, that makes them no different than a centralized exchange. Like sure, everything on the back end is smart contract oriented, but at the end of the day, everybody knows Uniswap, and if the website doesn't let you do something, then it's not very decentralized. But in light of all of that, what I think I'd like to see happen more is, like Buck was saying, getting some of these other people in DeFi to see this and to kind of at least be on our side from the aspect of this is bad for everybody. But on the flip side of that, also, this is a very big educational moment for all the misconceptions that are basically blatantly spread about the Richard Hardy ecosystem. It's kind of our time to shine. We have a movie that's coming out that I think would have done well without this news. I think this news might make it do a lot better. We'll see. But there's certainly more eyes on that now.
Yeah, I can't see any downside for that.
Yeah, so what's funny to me is like it's easy to see how this is FUD. It's easy to see how people get fearful in this situation. So I can't necessarily blame anyone for selling or doing whatever they're doing with the price charts. But at the same point, it's also pretty evident that nothing's changed. When these kinds of things have happened to Ripple or anybody else, exchanges are locking people out. They're saying you can't do this, you can't do that anymore. Like you got Uniswap trying. They didn't really succeed because I have a front end. There's the ETHX front end, or there's a lot of other dexes. You can just bridge to PulseChain and use something else like Fux or PulseX. So, nothing's really changing as far as the use case here. It's a lot of people assuming the worst probably. And it's just something we are going to all have to kind of deal with and get through. But mostly Richard has to deal with and get through. It affects the the individuals here, much less than it affects him.
So true. So I guess while we're talking the Uniswap and what Hayden and whatever she wants to do, whatever. There's been some chatter either on Twitter or whatever social channels that you peruse, or ideas thrown about. Perhaps that's a better way of saying it. What if something like PulseX was, forked to Ethereum or PHUX, and just take our business to where the business left, kind of thing? Do you have any opening thoughts on that potential idea, conversation, that piece that has been thrown out there?
To kind of go off of what Alex just said, because it made me realize something before we do the whole forking PulseX thing. Where was Hex listed when it ran up from being worthless to being worth billions of dollars? Right? Where was it listed?
Was it like Bybit?
It was on Dex. It was on Dexes, right? It was on the Ethereum blockchain. It was on these couple of centralized exchanges that I think 3 or 4 of them went belly up, right? And they just don't exist anymore. Especially the one where it was first listed. It was some random Chinese exchange that no longer exists anymore. Okay. I
remember you could bid a Satoshi for Hex back then.
Somebody here might have actually bid a Satoshi for some Hex at one point.
Someone in the chat or on Twitter, I know 2 people. Not saying they're here or in chat or on Twitter, but I know of 2 people who might have done such a thing. But yes, continue.
So, what exactly, like Alex said, what exactly has changed, guys? We have an entire L1 that is not listed anywhere. It's listed on OKX. Okay. Who's in China right now? Nobody. Nobody here is in China. Brambles is in China, but is Brambles buying? Doubt it. Like he's probably fully invested already. Like come on, guys. People that come into this community are already DeFi literate, right? They already know how to navigate the blockchain. Okay, they know how to navigate different front ends. They know how to go in and out of bridges. They know how to do all this stuff, right? Because literally, when you tried to buy Hex in the beginning, what'd you have to do? You had to go on Coinbase. You had to set up a MetaMask, a wallet of some sort. Okay, you had to make sure you stored your shit properly, right? Then you had to go find the correct pair on Uniswap. That wasn't a scam, right? So you had to have all of this prerequisite knowledge to actually buy this stuff before you could actually, enjoy, being in the Hex community, right? Now there's one extra step. Right? You go from Coinbase to your wallet, and then you go across the bridge, and then you can do all the same stuff. Right? Nothing has changed. Just the perception of a risk, right? Which that has a big deal of it. But after that perception, kind of like we all kind of like, okay, it's not as bad as we thought. Maybe this thing is not going to zero, right? Maybe there's actual value here. Then we can start getting out of this rut that we're in, where the chain is, in my opinion, undervalued. So I don't know, just made me realize that with what Alex said. So,
well, and like something I thought about earlier today was like, something someone could do really easily. And this is like kind of like the beauty of like things that are actually decentralized. You could write a contract right now that takes in 1 hex and gives out something else. Call it like, hex bucket. Doesn't matter what it's called. Right?
So you just spread around the
and then it would show up in Uniswap again on their front end, but it would still be Hex. And then you could just unwrap it.
Could the PH ecosystem do something like that and call it fuck it?
we absolutely can. I mean, like if I were Richard, I would deploy PulseX on Ethereum this weekend, just as a proof that okay, fine, you can censor us, but if he doesn't have time to, I'll do it when the boys can get around to it. Although we are a little bit busy.
Did you hear that? Did you read in the SEC complaint that they already believe PulseX is on Ethereum? Like that's what they say.
Well,
that PulseX is on Ethereum.
Well, let's help them look less stupid in court then, I guess, and be like, well, we
parts
didn't
of that
want
were
to.
written in crayon. It's like somebody wrote it in crayon before they sent it to publish, because you got that. I mean, Rags, Walrus, they can all go through the different points. What was it? The
Sure.
5 million pulse to validate? No, and a host of other issues. It's just comical.
It's this thing is pretty interesting because you can tell just by reading it, and it makes me even more scared about like the rest of the world, COVID, Ukraine, everything else that's actually really serious. I mean, this is just a small part of crypto, right? But you realize just how incompetent the government is, and why you really don't want to let them make all the decisions in your life, because it looks to me like they basically took down a statement from somebody with a very low IQ, who was probably conflicted, probably angry because they probably bought the top or something. Didn't have a good experience, whatever. Right? That seems like the most likely thing. And they got most of their facts incorrect, and you realize, holy shit, this thing that is in charge of all of our lives is run just by pretty average humans, that frankly, like they probably couldn't get proper jobs elsewhere, so they went and worked at, in a regional office of the SEC somewhere, and they're bored and they're looking for easy wins, and they go, well, who's this guy on YouTube with all the gold watches? Like that's probably the extent of the sophistication of their thinking about this. It's actually kind of laughable. I think there's a way to play this, and in cards it's called a Mazaire game, or kind of like what you do in hearts, and that's ironically, you have the strategy to shoot the moon. We can almost basically soak up so much negative publicity, that we may actually, cause ourselves to become very topical, without even trying, in a sense, and become like the kind of bad boy of crypto, and that may actually be what ends up happening. I don't know, but it sure looks like that's what the SEC wants to make happen. The timing of this thing as well, right before the movie comes out, I think is obviously deliberate, in the sense that they want to show that they're addressing this, right? But they're also drawing attention to us at the same time. But yeah, I think one point I want to make is that the SEC has cost all of us hundreds of millions of dollars in value the past few days. I don't think any of us care about those a few $1 million worth of watches, to be honest. I care about them interfering with something that they clearly don't understand, and they should not be involved in, and they should not be policing on behalf of the rest of the world. Hex, for example, or Pulse or PulseX, as far as I'm aware, they're not listed on a single US deck or CEX, right? It's, so anybody using it is using MetaMask, which means, in my opinion, they're sophisticated enough as crypto investors to have, basically gone off of the CEXs. If the government feels like it's appropriate to, look after retail, then I think that starts with the CEXs, right? And since we're not involved in any of those things, really, what the hell are they doing coming after us? To me, that just seems like, them really overreaching. But these are the same people that brought us Lehman Brothers, the TARP bailout, the Iraq and Afghan war, the COVID lockdowns, the COVID vaccination regime, the mask regime. I mean, this is just a group of people that are collectively able to do many, many, many errors over and over and over again.
A history of destruction.
And US and our tax dollars are paying for it as US
and our tax dollars are paying for it. So like we need to crypto needs to start lobbying the government the same way the NRA does, or any other group. speaking of which, I like your umbrella. I'm glad you're keeping the spirit of Pride Month going.
ESG friendly.
Cabana.
That was last month, sir. And
This is yeah, but I mean, we need to be like that ESG mafia actually, because the ESG mafia is very effective, right? They've infiltrated everything. But the crypto people need to do the same thing. We need to start, really getting people to advocate to our congressmen and whatnot. We need to speak to everybody about, our rights and things like that, and make sure that Congress doesn't think they can punch us down like this without there being some sort of political ramifications. Because ultimately, if they realize that actually, a lot of people Dylan's age really like their crypto, and they really don't like it when some, 70-year-old former Goldman Sachs partner, attacks it, right? Like that'll end up with them sort of going, well, okay, we need to actually, not lose this election. So, Gary, why don't you go actually after something else? But I mean, they have so many better targets, so many people that they actually should be protecting. My mother is a victim of, Voyager Finance, for example, who went bankrupt as a result of the contagion, that took out, Celsius, BlockFi, FTX, etc.
I think a big name or two on that huge space yesterday that was not RH Hex ecosystem related cited lost millions in Voyager.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There you go. And it's, that's, in my opinion, that is actually where the SEC should be, getting involved, and they should be going, well, we need to make sure those things are called shadow banks. They're basically not like proper banks. They're not properly regulated. They're not part of the FDIC. They're risky, right? That's where they should be kind of actually cleaning things up, and I think they are, right? But where the SEC should not be is in a small corner, niche corner of DeFi, picking on something that's very new that they don't understand. And to be honest, most people don't understand. Like even in crypto, people, they don't understand really what we're trying to do here as a community. Like that's evident when you talk to most people. So I think that's a very important thing to kind of lay out to them, is that they're really barking up the wrong tree here as well.
Yeah, before I get too far. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alex. Go ahead.
I was saying, Buck and I are similar in mind on pretty much all this stuff, but yeah, I think less about the should be, would be's, and a little bit more about the realities to a degree. And the reality is they, we're fortunate that we don't have, like, for the longest time, people have always said, oh, when are we going to get listed on this X or this other one, Coinbase? When's that going to happen? Like, we're fortunate we're not. We're very fortunate we're not, because then we'd have a problem. The only problem we have right now is that people are selling, and people are lucky they can sell, because if we were all on centralized exchanges, you wouldn't be selling, you'd be locked out. So on one side of this, we're actually seeing just how resilient this stuff is in the face of adversity, because like you can still use it, you can still sell it. Like PulseChain itself, validators are all at this point 100% community run. I run a couple of them. I'm sure a couple people in the comments right now run a couple of them. We don't necessarily need Richard for any of this to continue. Like, it probably looks bad from a PR sense if something bad happens to Richard as a result of this lawsuit stuff. But the reality is, like, all this is decentralized enough that he is not necessary for it to function. A handful of us can theoretically carry the torch if we have to. I personally don't think it will come to that. I look at what the SEC is doing, and I'm like, it's just so wrong, right? It's just so unbelievably wrong on so many levels. It's almost like they picked what they thought would be the easiest target, but unfortunately might have just picked the hardest target.
Yep, that cannot be understated.
So I think we have a very long, drawn out probably boring thing in front of us and I don't think it ultimately matters for most of this. And we're decentralized enough and we're not tied to enough centralized like entities that can block us from doing whatever we're going to do. That I won't be surprised if this ultimately just straight up doesn't matter. It literally only matters personally to Richard at the moment.
And especially if it ends up being something like a fine, which, if it's a civil kind of thing, that's, again, it's been said in spaces for people who, I guess, have vague knowledge and or experience with this crypto thing. It's like, they SEC kind of, the government wants their cut. They'll take their cut and then they'll move on to the next thing. They, to echo your point, probably viewed this as the lowest hanging fruit. And I brought this up on one of the spaces in the past, I don't know, yesterday or the day before. It's like, okay, SEC is known, for their fishing expeditions. What if this time they got caught by the fishermen? What if they were lured in by the outrage marketing? Because clearly it was by design. The founder wanted the attention of anyone and everyone. And I'm pretty sure, being, a former full-time U.S. resident, that he knew at some point this was going to happen. And I don't think someone so smart would be so dumb as to bring all that attention on himself and then perhaps used sacked funds or a sacrifice donation, whatever you want to call it, to go purchase watches if you were, doing your thing with Bitcoin 10, 12 years ago. So.
Yeah, and I can, personally how I feel about the matter is I don't care. My own personal feelings don't necessarily matter much in this situation, but I think what Richard does with his money ultimately shouldn't matter. But the reality of all this is that we have a strong community. I think we have we have a lot of egos in the community, and not all of them get along. I think we should stop kind of bickering over things at this point that don't matter. We kind of have a centralized enemy now. You know what I mean? Like we have a reason to all get along. Maybe we should actually start all kind of getting along, at least on the surface.
There's a bit of irony in there too, right?
Yeah, it's like
a centralized enemy.
It's just like some people like argue over such stupid things that now, in retrospect, considering the current situation, don't matter at all. They do not matter. And we should work together instead of against each other to, prove that this is the decentralized system we say it is. Like it's something we've preached for, I don't know, it feels like it's been a decade, but I guess it's only been like 3 or so years. But at the end of the day, we've sat here saying like this is DeFi, this is decentralized. It doesn't matter what comes our way because you can't stop the contracts, you can't stop the validators from running code, you can't do all this stuff. It's like let's all get together and prove it.
Yeah, I think you just brought a good point up, Alex, and something I predicted actually as well the past couple of weeks when everybody was attacking Dylan and I about PHUX. This news comes out and everything falls, lockstep together, right? And it goes up together, when it finally bounces, right? So Hedron's down, 30% yesterday or whatever. So is Hex, so is PHUX, so is PulseX. Like everybody who's been running around making this argument that everything is, vampiring. That's not the case. The way the market's valuing this network is basically, in USD terms, and it's valuing it all collectively, right? So that should kind of be evident to everybody now. It's looking at everything. It's not looking at everything individually and going, well, this one's going to go up 100% and this one's going to go down 30%. Not really. Like these are going to all be very correlated. So this is an attack on everybody that is building for this chain, and we should all look at it like that, and I think that's unfortunate. that they're basically showing up in the trailer park here, and Richard's not here, but they're basically beating us up and taking our money,
You're a leader.
and saying, we're the government, we're here to protect you, like as they basically rape us, right? Like that's effectively what's happening to them. So like I hope that they're mindful of that there's people putting real effort into this and that have committed years of their lives to this stuff. It's not a cult. That's another thing I want to dispel. I think we all have plenty of disagreement. I certainly have been somebody that's constantly had disagreement with various members of the community.
No,
I'm
never,
seeing,
Buck, never.
yeah,
Anything.
it's just kind of laughable. Even when Richard did the outrage marketing thing, I'd say about half the community thought that was a really dumb idea from the from the get go. I would have been in that camp, but like that doesn't, so it's not like we're a monolith. So that's one thing that I want to make sure that we're very careful about, because they do try to paint this as we're a bunch of what is it? Bedazzled cultists that listen to whatever Richard says, and that really couldn't be further from the truth. What we are on average actually is a bunch of people that are naturally skeptical of everybody, especially power. That's the common thread. Like we're sort of on average, the average Mexican is sort of an anti-elitist, kind of rural or southern, kind of libertarian type, by and large, right? That so we're not exactly the kind of people that fall for cults, right? A lot of ex-military, a lot of kind of hillbillies, kind of Miami ghetto guys like Dylan, but we're just not people that trust the man, right? So it's really silly. And what we like about Richard is that Richard is also one of those people, and has been calling out bad behavior by authority for years, right? And we agree with him on so much of that, right? That's an important thing to keep in mind as well. So we are going to keep moving. We are going to keep building things. The community is not going to stop. Everybody that thinks that we're going to basically just roll over and die is going to find out that that's definitely not going to happen. Good to see Maddie's here. Maddie's doing a conference. Alex is building stuff. I'm building stuff. There's a movie coming out. There's people, marketing. There's people in Twitter Spaces all the time. We're a decentralized community of people throwing in all of their different charms. Freddie Quotes makes rap songs, which are, by the way, excellent trading signals.
I took part and said trading signal.
very, very good. Yeah, but we're all doing our part here. And we don't all agree on it, right? And it's quite funny. And if anything, I said this in the Spaces, but I don't think I said it today, is that Richard's hiatus, if you will, kind of has left a bit of a power vacuum, in the sense that we're now sort of forced to kind of each individually come up with our views on what the strategy should be. And one of the reasons I've been very vocal recently is really just because I see a lot of bad strategies. So I want to kind of, put out those thoughts that I think may be good strategies, and let you guys sort of play with them. So I've been doing that in a number of tweets, but that's also why, I wanted to be out in these YouTube things this week as well. Because I think we can't rely on the same talking points that Richard gave us 3 years ago for Hex. I don't think these things are so relevant at the moment. Like we need to get away from bashing people over the head about, market cap as a vanity metric, and, like T-share math and things like that. We should really just be focusing on, we're a decentralized community. We're not going away. If they're coming for us, they're coming for you, Eric Wall. They're coming for you, Udi. They're coming for you, Vitalik. They're coming for you, Hayden. You can hope that they just stop at Richard, but this is really a way of going after everybody. And to that degree, I think Richard actually did just sort of do a weird tweet, which Richard has had a lot of interestingly timed tweets recently.
I would first say, before you go into that, the fact that he just tweeted like yesterday, like nothing happened, that's a good sign. He's still around. He's not going anywhere. Like he might not be out on stream parading, doing all these shows, but he's still there. Not scared.
I'm alive. Yeah, I'm alive, and and well, guys. That's kind of what that said. That's how I read it too. I'm just gonna ignore the news type of thing. So that's how I read it. But yeah, he just tweeted period in American English over a tweet he did back in April. It looks like.
I'll link it for you, Cabana.
Yeah, it's basically, he says the right to transact underpins all other rights. You don't have free speech if you can't buy a stamp or a net connection. You can't assemble if you can't buy gas or a ticket. The right to transact needs to be enshrined and protected against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And then he's got a kind of hokey graphic saying, protect democracy, remember what they fought for. I think he's talking about the people that fought in all the wars for our free speech. Yes, it's a very good tweet that Richard made many months ago, and I think that's exactly right. That's the message. So I interpret that little period there as Richard likes this narrative, and it's a good one for us to double down on as a community. We really need to make this about not just our rights as Hexicans, but everybody's rights as citizens of democratic countries, including America or wherever you're from, right? Don't let the government shouldn't be interfering with this new, fascinating, interesting, innovative part of decentralized finance, right? They just shouldn't. It's not appropriate for them. They don't understand it, and it's a global thing as well. They understood that the internet is, a human right. I would say crypto is a human right as well, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just to kind of put some icing on the cake here a little bit, I think the most important takeaway here for anyone watching this that maybe isn't involved in Hex, Pulse, or PulseX, because I do think we actually have quite a few people watching. These things are just crypto projects that exist. They aren't listed on any centralized exchange anywhere. It's a lot of people individually who make them what they are, and they're going after them. And if they're coming after us, there's a good chance they're going to come after the things that you care about later. We just happen to be the current target. And at the end of the day, this is something we all need to care about, because more or less what's being said here is that, hey, someone bought $12 million of watches and purses, and they have these worthless tokens, in air quotes, worthless, and because of that, they wiped $200+ million off the map. Like, where's the protection? Like everyone should care about this in crypto. This is not like, oh, it's the Hexican trailer park gang. Let's let them deal with their own problems. It's like, no, like this is actually a big problem that affects all of crypto as a whole, even the Bitcoin bros. It's just overall a big deal.
Yeah, the terminology is slippery slope. That's what this is. This is why the people defend the Second Amendment so hard, because they know if they give an inch on it, they'll come for everything. That's just the way it is. Governments are constantly gonna constantly try to keep taking more power. That's what bureaucracies are all about. And we shouldn't allow them to, just because the cool kids don't like us, right? That's a colossal mistake. So I think we're in a position though where it is going to be, we are so unique as a community in a sense, in that we are DeFi native, and we have been from the beginning. Most of us, the first time we used MetaMask probably was because of Hex, right? Most of us, the first time we used Uniswap was because of Hex.
Just real quick, I will add, when I got into Hex super early on, I was like, MetaMask, what is this bullshit? What is this Uniswap shit? Like, what is this? What are you guys talking about? And then people were talking about like Uniswap airdrops, and I was like, what? What is it? Eventually, one day I learned, but it was just like, I lived purely in a world of, I think back then I was using largely Bittrex, which is gone now, I believe. But it was just like, to me, crypto existed at the centralized exchange front, and I've since Hex transitioned entirely off of that, and that's an eye-opening experience for sure. I think for anyone who's been through that, which is probably at least half of us, and I think that's something that deserves to be protected.
Yeah, I agree completely. I barely even use CEXs anymore. Almost never.
Yeah. Somebody in the community coined the term, treating it like a public bathroom. I think it was Kareem actually, where, you get in, you do your business, and you get the fuck out, right? You don't stay there for very long. You don't hang out. You get in, you get out. You do what you need to do.
Well, and if you have a choice to have a home base, you stick with the home base. You don't want to have to, you don't want to have to nest. That's exactly right. So it's crypto's all about self-sovereignty and stuff like that. And I think one thing I think Richard's always been wonderful about is these sort of values. I never understood his seemingly irrational hatred of CEXs exactly. But like the longer this goes on, the more I realize how right he was. These things are, which isn't to say they shouldn't exist. I support those guys too, right? But I personally sleep very well at night knowing that my crypto sits in a hardware wallet that I control, and that I have the ability to basically add risk or reduce risk at my leisure, 24 hours a day without having to ask anybody. I mean, to me as a finance professional, this is just so cool. I can go, okay, the music's stopping. I'm buying stable coins. Boom, done.
You don't need the FDIC, right?
It takes me 10 seconds. It's outstanding. Conversely, okay, I think the party's back on. I'm going to buy now. It's just such a beautiful invention, and once you really understand it and how to use it, it's very, very powerful. I, as an investment professional, we have tools like this that you guys just don't have. You don't have access to, and you never have, right? Which sucks, right? But this completely democratizes that. You don't need to pay guys like me anymore, unless you really want to, or unless we're really good, unless we're that good to do this for you, right? And that's amazing. I think. I imagine a future where, you're going to have much better synthetic derivatives or things that, allow you to get exposure to actual companies, of things of that nature. And you're going to be able to do almost everything that you do on Interactive Brokers or, through Bloomberg, that you do now on those things. You're going to be able to do that on the blockchain, I think in a matter of a few years.
And Buck, how much do you have to pay per month to just have a Bloomberg terminal to have access to all these features?
They're about $30,000 a year, and they don't eat, and they don't negotiate on price, no matter who you are.
Bloomberg Trezor.
And by the way, Bloomberg is like just literally your messenger service. All the other stuff, that actually allows you to trade with each other.
So it's an add-on, right?
It's you need a whole massive infrastructure. You need to have legal agreements called ISDAs in place. It just goes on and on. Okay, which is why only people that are professional investors with hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions, are able to actually do this in the real world, right? Properly at an institutional level. Whereas this just completely levels the playing field. You have the same exact tools that are available as anybody else. So it's just really a beautiful thing. Guys like Gary Gensler should look at this and just like be in awe of it. They should look at things like Uniswap and Aave and just go, wow, that is so fucking cool. That we used to have tens of thousands of people at Goldman's when he was back when he was a partner in Tokyo. That would be doing this thing that can just be done with contract code now. These guys, they're on the wrong side of history on this. I think they should be looking at this as just an amazing innovation that's really going to make the world a much better place. Life was terrible, throughout all of human history, from the ancient Egypt, Babylon, all the way up until the 17th century, when the Dutch invented the market economy. That's really the big moment when life suddenly got better, and it got better way faster. When people were able to go out and make money, create companies, build things, scale ideas, organize collectively, and really market forces were allowed to take over, where before that you had pharaohs and kings and other kind of czars and other idiots building useless stuff that didn't really contribute to the economy. You suddenly then had market forces. So I look at this as them trying to go backwards, in a sense, away from progress, because what's amazing about crypto is that it's this wild west of innovation, and it seems to me like they're trying to stifle that, which I think is a real shame.
Well, and I'll add some context to your whole little Bloomberg terminal thing, because I think most people don't fully understand it.
It's not the TV network he's talking about.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Bloomberg terminal is like a thing you normally work somewhere and they provide it for you, but it's basically a fancy computer that does a bunch of fancy shit and has a bunch of fancy software that lets you do cool stuff. And the reason that all costs so much money and has agreements, has all this BS, is because it's just littered with middlemen, right? Tons of middlemen that can screw you at every step of the way.
It's a monopoly.
Exist. Yeah. And all those agreements exist because to kind of prevent the screwing, right? It's like, let's have some structure here that prevents us from screwing you too bad. And you don't need that in a blockchain system, because everything's deterministic. If you say you're going to do one thing, 20 other nodes on the network also have to verify that, hey, yeah, he can do that one thing. That it has to be a propagated deterministic thing that happens. And that's an incredibly powerful thing that allows you to do a lot of cool stuff, like just write some code that does something, and then anyone in the world can use it, and anyone else in the world can see how it was used and when it was used and why it was used. It eliminates the need for so much complexity and middlemen, and ultimately is a fantastic innovation. It's just something that, for whatever reason, well, it's obvious, but the bureaucratic governments of the world just don't know how to handle.
Agreed on that front. I just threw it in the private chat there. I'm going to try to upgrade my mobile tech if we have a bit more to go, because we got some topics to discuss. I just want to do a quick room reset here, because we've been going for about an hour, close to 500 people strong, like in and out, over under, I should say, taking in the stream. I think it's a happy hour record. I give all the credit to the guys, or actually the guy right beside me, Dylan. And the two guys below me right here. So thank you, guys. In a bear market, or in horrible black swan price action, whatever you want to call it, this is decentralization record amount of viewers, and for this little fun show that we do on a Friday. Did want to shill a couple things while we got some eyeballs in here. Matty Allen, Buck mentioned it earlier. He has a conference this weekend. I think it starts 10 a.m. Eastern. It's a 48-hour stream. Look him up on YouTube, MATI space ALLIN. And that's an event going on, like I said, for 48 hours. And that goes, I guess, during or after the world premiere, which I believe is tomorrow night in Miami. So many big name Hexicans are going to be there for the world premiere in theaters. And then Friday, Saturday is also the premiere of The Highest of Stakes. Lots of cities have already sold out. You might be able to find seats in more cities on Saturday rather than Friday, but check out Regal Cinemas if you are in a major city. It's the most newsworthy thing that's in theaters right now. The timing of the serendipitous Exchange Commission could not have been better with that. So congrats to the Highest of Stakes guys and everybody who put something into that effort. This is going to be a great weekend for fans, I would hope, of crypto, haters of Richard Hart, but mainly fans of crypto. This whole thing is big. It's not just, I think Buck tweeted it maybe earlier. I don't want to bastardize my verbiage, but it's not like Richard Hart versus the SEC. It's DeFi versus the SEC.
We got another in the private chat. I've put it there. We've got another lengthy tweet from Richard this time. More than one character. If we can maybe bring that up, because I think I think he's with us, guys. Honestly, I'm and if he's listening, I think he understands that we're with him on this fight. So the tweet goes something like, blockchains are a library. Blockchains are people writing math, art, speech. Blockchains software is publishing software you use to publish the speech you've created to the public. The First Amendment protects your right to communicate with your fellow man. Banning the pen would be worse than banning a book. Blockchains are the digital pen by which you make permanent, immutable, provable speech to the world. They are a unique tool by which you can prove that you said something at a certain time, a tool which lets you communicate with your fellow man permissionlessly as God intended, a building block for the digital future of man. The Constitution has been proven in court to protect numerous types of speech, from dance to nudity to code. Blockchains are more than just speech. They're also the very tools by which you can broadcast your ideas into the world, often a Turing complete vast world of possibility.
Man, can't add much to that. It's basically perfect.
Except he should have capitalized God, probably. So that
Amen.
God is under case for Richard, because
Oh man.
I think that shows you that Richard's definitely got on board with the idea that this is about rights, and that's really beautiful. You can't really argue with that, guys. Like if you're Eric Wall, it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Like if you care about cryptocurrency and even the slightest amount of capacity, like, this is basically what it's all about, and this is what's at risk currently.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is, because we're sort of trailer, I like the whole trailer trash thing. Because we are the sort of kind of subset of Americans that they really dislike, which is free thinkers that don't necessarily want 16 jabs, want to ask questions, naturally distrust the government. A lot of us served in the military, So we've seen we've seen, not me, but the royal we've seen firsthand what happens when the government fucks up, and what they can do to other countries. We're naturally these kind of people, and I think that means we're also very protected in a sense, and resilient. We're like the preppers of crypto, right? We've been ready for this from the beginning. It would have been way easier just to run Hex, like everybody else does, and pay for listings on Binance and do all this stuff. But we've done the hard yards and played a very different game than all the rest of crypto, as far as I can tell, in this regard. So I think we're actually going to be pretty well poised to take advantage of this. And this fight is going to actually, I don't want to sound overly bullish or anything like this, but this fight is going to keep us relevant for years, right? Like we're not just going to, if we don't disintegrate in the next 48 hours, right, whatever it is, then we're going to be here for years, I think, and we're gonna basically have this fight go on forever, and it's gonna keep us being very relevant to the rest of crypto for a very long time. And I do think I've seen a lot of guys talk about, well, I may not like Richard, but I do think he's very well equipped to make these kind of arguments on behalf of crypto, right? So it's good to see him doing that, and we support you, Richard.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think is I've seen some people in the comments going on about is like, if Uniswap's blacklisting is, how do you transact? One of the beautiful things about exactly what we're talking about is Uniswap's just smart contracts on the back end. Anyone can run a front end. I run one that doesn't block Hex. It's swap.hedron.pro. There's ethex.com. There's forks and forks and forks of this. You can even go get it off my GitHub and run it on your local computer if you want. You don't even have to trust me. You can do it yourself. Like that. That's the kind of stuff where that's the freedom of speech we kind of need to protect here, the freedom to transact. And if anyone is best poised to deal with this right now, it might very well be us.
Yeah, and we've also sort of horizontally integrated everything as well in this regard, which I think is also very important. We have our own L1 now that we control as a community. We've got multiple dexes on it. So it's already going to be pretty hard to censor. That if one party disagrees with another. Cabana, you might want to mute yourself if you're not chatting. We're going to have our own fiat on ramps pretty soon with Coast, what they're doing. We're going to have our own stable coins. We're going to be very resilient, and we'll have the best of DeFi on PulseChain pretty soon as well. So I think we're going to be a very difficult thing to stop in that regard. We're all motivated, hardworking, passionate people, and we're not cult members, and we're not victims. We shouldn't let them.
We are now. I mean, fuck.
Well, we are victims of the government. Yeah, that's true. But we're not victims of Richard Hart, and we're not victims of being in a cult. We have disagreement. And the fact that I'm here shows you that the community does tolerate disagreement, because nobody has disagreed more with this community successfully over the years than myself. Richard called me the most dedicated fudster in the history of Hex once, which is something I'm quite proud to have been called by the great man himself. But yeah, here we are, years later, I really think that we should push back on that narrative and just go, hey, like, we're not a cult. I didn't like the outrage marketing, or I did like the outrage marketing, but we disagree with each other all the time. You know, that's normal. And we own. Most of us will happily admit that we own other crypto. I own Bitcoin, I own Ethereum, I own a whole bunch of stuff. Right? I'm not somebody that tells anybody that they should only buy Richard Hart coins. And whenever I do see those people, I have no problem explaining to them why that's a bad idea. Diversification is a good thing, guys. I tell people this every day. So we're not a cult, and we're not victims. And if anything, PulseChain's a tremendous opportunity. And Richard didn't have to build PulseChain for us. He did because he understood that we needed to build out our own ecosystem. Imagine if Apple just stopped with the iMac. They said, the original kind of Blueberry iMac. This is before your time, Dylan. But it was a CRT monitor and a PC in one, kind of in a weird oblong shape, right? Imagine if Apple had just stopped with that and said, "Well, we had a success with that," right?
You mean kind of like Bitcoin? I mean,
yeah, kind of like Bitcoin. Yeah, exactly. No. What you want to do is, like, it's great to have an iMac, but you want to have a better operating system. So let's make OS 10. But by the way, this MP3 technology is pretty cool, but it's not really usable by the masses yet. Let's make a thing called an iPod. An iPod's like an iPhone, Dylan, but it doesn't have a phone. It just
what an iPod is there?
It just plays music, and then Apple's like, well, if we're going to do that, then maybe we should make an app store, so that people can add all their different widgets and build shit for it, because it's really nice to have a decentralized group of developers all over the world building things for your ecosystem. So maybe let's incentivize that, right? Let's let people get rich building apps. Like, I think the App Store did something like $1 trillion in revenue, or something absurd. It was some massive number,
it's not even hardware anymore for them. I was gonna say, it's not even hardware for them anymore. It's like the service revenue and all these supplemental streams for Apple. Like, they built the playground, kind of like PulseChain, and the money is in all these other supplements that just keep coming and coming and coming.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying we're going to be Apple. I'm saying we should try to be Apple, in a sense, in a decentralized fashion as a community. We're not going to get a lot of help from the rest of crypto, obviously, which is fine. Apple didn't get a lot of help either. Mischief NZ asked, "Do iPods still exist?"
They're called iPads now.
No. They still exist. They're just,
I think there's like a low end one
landfill
that exists. Oh, yeah. I think what I want to see happen ultimately is, like, crypto's kind of evolved into this like flavor of the week type thing over the years, and I really like to see that not be the case. If to go back to like the Apple argument, phones used to be like this too. They still kind of are a little bit, but it's we're all buying from pretty much like the same two ice cream vendors now instead of thousands. But realistically, like, this idea that like, oh, they're just gonna, like, all this innovation's constantly happening, it really isn't. It's copy and paste, same thing that didn't work last time with a new name. And I think as a community, a lot of us, especially some of the people who are building, have looked and identified as stuff like, hey, this was a thing that was actually a good idea that worked. Let's do that here in our own way, and continue expanding in that direction. I think that's something that sets us apart from basically everywhere else, because everywhere else is constantly just like, oh, that thing died. Okay, I'm going to put a new name on it, and then we'll try it this time and see if the name makes a difference. It must not have been viral enough. When in reality, it's just a bad idea. So, I think we have a surprisingly unique and talented set of people that care about this space. I think we have a surprising amount of decentralization, more so than a lot of other places that claim to be, fully decentralized. And we are in a very good position to, make it through this and continue moving forward.
Yeah, and if you want to go back even before PulseChain, talking about taking an idea and making it even better, like that's kind of how Hex started, right? It was first Bitcoin Hex, and now it became what is improved Bitcoin or what have you, and the same thing happened with PulseChain, PulseX. So like the ideas were initially generated and made better over time.
There's an interesting comment from Enrique Ramon. If you can bring that one up, I quite like that one. The main thing is that we, so look at how creative Hexicans are, and look at how we can disagree. We can disagree with each other. Like
this is the one you wanted me to bring up, correct?
Yeah, that's the one. So like look at this. Even now, in a moment like this, we can disagree with each other, and we're not a cult. So there you go. But look at how creative people can be in this community. It's a beautiful thing.
Well, I don't know, Buck. I think based on that comment, you might be in a cult. I'm not, but it sounds like you might be.
I could be in a cult, but that cult isn't Hex. Yeah, that's exactly right. The financial services industry is a bit of a cult, I have to say.
Yeah, as evident with the fight against crypto. I mean, you could say they're their own cult, and they like to call Hexicans cultists, followers of Richard Hart cultists. So I think we touched on it, I guess, a bit earlier. Don't think we got too far into it, but Buck, you were like, you just kind of quipped there. You were like, hey, if I were Richard, I'd fork PulseX this weekend, kind of thing. But PHUX, PulseX, like DEXs on Ethereum, like what is that really in the realm of possibility right now? I mean, I guess Alex is a great one to ask about this. Like, is it something that should be on the priority list of people out there? What do you think about that?
I mean, it's easy. Like, it's copy paste if you want to do it.
Yeah, and as Buck always loves to mention, it's the easiest thing.
Yeah, I mean, Buck doesn't actually have to do it. He's got people that do it for him. So
if I had to do it, it wouldn't happen. That's true.
But it is relatively easy, right? Like if you have all of the code for PulseX, you could just go deploy it on Ethereum, call it whatever the hell you want. What should happen, shouldn't happen, I don't know. Like there's a lot of things that people said shouldn't happen, then happened and turned out to be good things, and vice versa. It's hard to say whether something's a good or bad idea in this space. But what I find the most promising with that kind of stuff, or at least the thing that I would want out of it, is better ease of use. If you can do it and it makes the lives of people better in some way, if it makes it easier to transact, then it's probably a good idea.
All right, looking forward to the fork this weekend, Buck. If you know someone, that was good.
Yeah, I mean, we've got probably more important things for us to do at the moment, but
a little bit. Yeah.
If I have to, I will do it eventually. I think Alex is right there about what he said. I love PulseChain. I barely use Ethereum anymore. I'd use Ethereum yesterday, and I was so pissed because it cost me like $30 to do something, I'm very happy to live on PulseChain, and bring. I'd rather go buy assets on PulseChain that I could buy on Ethereum and just have them there. All things being equal, the only issue we have really is the bridge risk. I think I get more comfortable with that as we go through stress tests like the ones we had yesterday. You know what I mean? Like I think there's something good about that as well. So if we're still alive in 48 hours, like I'm pretty sure we're going to be, alive, years from now. I think they made a massive misstep. Basically throwing gasoline on the fire of PulseChain. We're going to capitalize on that as a community. They don't understand who we are. They don't understand that we're actually deadly serious about what we're doing. Like this isn't some shitcoin, meme coin Ponzi thing. Like this is actually people who care so much about what they're doing and care so much about the core values of crypto. And a lot of us will continue, even if the financial incentives aren't even really there, we'll do it because we care that much about the values of what they're coming after, right? And that is not something you ever want to do as a government. You don't want to go in to a tribal region and start pushing feminism to Pashtun warriors or Taliban warriors, right? You don't want to start telling them, hey, you guys are wrong and we're right. Like that's just a massive mistake. Those people have values. They have things they care about. It's their territory. It's their country. What are you doing? Why are you coming into this space? Like they just make this mistake over and over again. And it comes from a position of they think that they're better. They know better than we do about this thing that they don't know anything about. It's actually really tragic, but it's exactly what I expect from the centralized authorities that that have basically only ever taken flights from DC to New York and back and forth for the last 70 years of their career, 60 years of their career, however long Gary's been at it. So I think it's a big mistake that they're making in that regard. And yeah, we're going to be very, very resilient.
Well, one thing I wanted to address was someone asked a little bit ago in the comments. It was like, it was Jay. His question was, if you want to put it up, it was, what if Richard Hart disappears like Satoshi? How will Pulse continue, and so on and so forth? The reality is all of the validators are already in the community. The code's public. There are, I don't know, we have a builders chat that's like 30 or I don't even know how many people. It's at least 30 of I would consider fairly highly talented people, excluding Buck. And the
Fair comment.
Yeah, there's a lot of people we don't always agree. Like there's people who don't like Buck and the things he does. There's people who don't like the internet money guys in their wallet and that stuff. But the reality is they built stuff and it works. And it does what it does. I think we should infight a little bit less, and we don't always agree with each other. Even in the dev chat, we don't all agree with each other, but we all understand that, hey, we're all building on this chain. This is our community and our effort. We should at least be civil with each other. And if it comes to this point where like Richard disappears, like pulls a Satoshi, like we will keep it going. There's even probably some PulseChain devs hanging around with pseudonyms in various chats that that are involved in the community and we don't even know about it. So I'm not worried about that at all. We can easily keep that moving.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus got crucified. Christianity didn't stop. Steve Jobs died. Apple didn't stop. You know what I mean? Like you get the values right, and you get the right people, going and working towards their own goals, in this ecosystem. That's incredibly powerful. And this thing's already snowballing to a degree. It doesn't really show you in the price chart yet, but if you think about what's actually happening, collectively, there's just there's just a lot, and there's a lot that people don't necessarily have that they haven't priced in yet. They haven't priced in, a GMX fork that allows people to do, perp trading. They haven't priced in this movie that could potentially go viral, especially after what's happened. They haven't priced in the fiat on ramps, the meme coins, all this stuff, and the other thing is, it's like if the SEC does go down this route where they start to be incredibly punitive and censor everything on Ethereum and all these other places, we're going to be like, one of these few free places, like a pirate island or a tax haven or whatever you want to think of it as. We're going to be one of the few free places in crypto pretty soon, if they keep going down this route, and if guys like Eric Wall continue to bend the knee to the man, and don't stand up for us like he knows he should. That's what's going to happen. So we're actually going to become like a very attractive place for crypto people, if they keep going down this route, and keep accepting censorship and keep banning people. We're going to be one of the few places that's totally self-sufficient and building itself out, and that you can't really stop. And I think that's very important. Like think of it like the Pirate Bay. That kind of decentralization. It's just really hard to stop, and it keeps going. And we need to be strong like that as a community, I think. So I don't worry about anything right now except for, basically the bridge and the network. I asked in the builders chat, what's the, how decentralized are we? And I got a response immediately from Brettep saying, very. This is, the validators are a 100% community, and this thing's been running very well. For the past couple months. Every day that it doesn't go down is means to me that it's likely to persist into the future. So I don't really worry too much. There's enough people that have long-term vested interest in this community, that we're going to be here years from now. I'm confident of that. We're not going to be walking away. So this guy Scott yesterday was asking, what is Hex's innovation really? And here's what I think Hex's innovation is.
Is that the wolf guy?
Yeah, it's the wolf guy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So I think Hex's innovation is not, it's a certificate of deposit. I think Hex's innovation is that, unlike Bitcoin, where any OG can sell their entire bag literally at any point in time in any block, Hex basically has forced a group of people who were early, and who locked up for a long time, to figure out a creative response as a community and do whatever they can to keep the thing going. Right? That, so it's forced us to basically be mentally and financially invested in in sustaining itself, which is actually, I think, a really good innovation, right? You care about America, you care about your grandparents' legacy, about your legacy, about your children's future there, right? So you go and you vote, or you go and you participate in the system, in the democracy. You build businesses because you're proud of that stuff. What Hex has with that mechanism is effectively causing people to do that. Otherwise you get the sort of B-Root style type meme stuff, where you're basically going, yeah, I'm going to own this thing for 6 days and then I'm going to sell it and never look at it again, right? That's what most of crypto is, right? Most of crypto is that. Even Bitcoin is that to an extent. Bitcoin OGs I don't know if I count as an OG, but I've been in it since 2013. I own Bitcoin, and all I want to do is just sell it the second it does a new all time high. That's like literally all I want to do with it, right? And then I'll hopefully buy it back lower, later, right? I'm not doing anything to make Bitcoin better, right? I don't care.
Quick question. While you just mentioned the corn there, just a 10-second answer. Do you think that this MicroStrategy raise of, I don't know, $750 million or something like that, was that? Do you think that's to buy the corn as it goes up instead of on a dip?
I mean, I'm a bond guy, so like I just look at what the Fed's doing. So Michael's timing so far has been fucking awful. I wish he'd talked to me. I could have saved him. I could have made him a lot more money if I just told him, "Hey, asshole, you might have a good idea here, but you should fucking wait. You're very late to the party." DCAN, Michael. Now that was back in 2020, right? The easy money was already made by the time MicroStrategy started getting involved. But yeah, I look at what the Fed's likely to do. If we start to get that persistent inflation down next year, if unemployment starts to tick up, that's going to cause them to start cutting. That's going to be very positive for risk assets. So that's the thing I'm looking for. Kind of what is it? I want confirmation of that. Basically, I think it's likely to happen in sometime in the next few years, right? I just don't know when. But yeah, Michael seems to just not be too worried about that. I think he just wants to get more exposure. I I don't know what he's doing, but yeah, if you want to buy Bitcoin because Michael's buying it, you can do that. But I would prefer to buy Bitcoin because I think interest rates are coming down more than the market already anticipates.
Well, that's like a whole nother discussion there. So that's a man. We could go that way, but I do want to get Alex's take on something while it's top of mind because it was kind of on the topics list. So you mentioned building on PulseChain. I'm always curious as to what you're up to. If you have anything to say on that front, feel free not to. But I'll put this to Buck, Dylan, and Alex. What are the projects/products that you are most interested in seeing coming live? Of course, the wind picks up as I'm talking.
Well, I think all I'm going to say is the things I'm focused on, short term at least, are on the realm of unification. Getting all of the things that like a lot has changed, right? Like we went from basically hex and a few hex derivatives, primarily paired into USDC, right? And USDC is what I call a concrete floor. Pretty much doesn't move. We went from that ecosystem into, as soon as Pulse launched, to everything's ultimately kind of pared down into Pulse, and Pulse is a jello floor. It is not a rock solid foundation, at least not yet. So you end up with like one of the things I find really interesting was like during all of this like downturn, right? Like Dylan and I were in a chat talking about it, like hours after, maybe even just like 1 hour after it was kind of announced, and we're like looking at the volume, and it's like volume on Hex is like there's more buys than sells, but the price is going down. Well, it's because the price of Pulse is going down, and Hex is no longer doesn't have that concrete floor. If Pulse goes, so does Hex. So like that's a negative on one side, but it's also like gives it this trampoline effect later on, where it's like, well, also if Hex pumps and Pulse pumps, they Hex kind of double pumps in a way. So we're now in a very like different economic space just because of the layout of the ecosystem has changed significantly. And I don't think people have properly kind of estimated how that works. It's like it makes watching like USD charts really difficult to understand what's going on, where before it's very easy. And now you really need to be watching like, oh, well, I should watch EHEX versus HEX, and I should watch HEX versus Pulse, and as a secondary to the USD charts, because the USD charts no longer give you a proper picture of what's happening. So I think a lot of people haven't quite caught up to speed on that yet. I think liquidity has, you've seen people take their liquidity from Ethereum, bridge it over. Now it's on PulseX. Some of it's on Fox. Some people left it on Ethereum. Some people decided to take things on PulseChain and send them to Ethereum. And now there's liquidity for that on the Ethereum side, which a lot of people don't know about. You can go buy Pulse on Ethereum and bridge it back. And it's like, no one really does it. I don't think a lot of people know it exists. And what ends up happening is that price stays high, and then someone buys it on the Pulse side, bridges it over, and arbs it down, and that's the majority of the traffic. So we've created this kind of a mess where the liquidity went from one place to many places and many tokens, and the floors are no longer concrete, they're made of jello, and everything's kind of ugly. And I'm focused on things that reunify that and make that easier to understand or easier to use. I think those are going to be the most important things short term. I think Buck is working on a lot of those, and that's mostly what I'm focused on as well. So I'm not going to share too much more than that, but that's the gist of it.
Nice. Buck, Dylan, I know you have a few things to talk about, and, perhaps no expectations, but it seems to me things are close. Does the recent SEC thing push things back at all, or are you just full steam ahead like always?
So we're more or less full steam ahead. I was going to launch Fiat this week. Fiat's already live on mainnet, but I'm just going to give that a few days, I think, just before I give you guys the link to it and let you guys actually play with it. Just to kind of let this vol play through. It is a nice little stress test for us, though. By the way, we get to watch this privately, and everything's working. So that doesn't really change our path too much. But I also just don't think you guys are that interested in hearing about an Aave fork this week. I think there's probably bigger things on your mind than us. So I thought. Maybe I'll just add a deference to Richard and the community. I thought I'll push that back a little bit. We have the preliminary results for Fame, which is our GMX fork. They didn't find any big issues or anything like that. So we're going to be likely launching both of these things this month. And Fiat, basically I can launch pretty much the moment I say yes. So it's really just me picking a moment at this stage. In terms of things that I'm excited about on PulseChain, and I just want to say that there's a difference between me saying I'm excited about something and it being a good investment, right? They're two different questions. So things I'm excited about, I'm really excited to see stablecoins of all sorts. So Liquid Loans and Power City and Coast. I'm very excited to see that. The kind of what Alex was talking about, the things that kind of, unify and harmonize the chain. Like Infura, all this kind of fancy tech stuff that people like me don't care about, but I know is probably quite important underneath things. I'm excited to see, foundations built that are going to kind of, be a mouthpiece for the community as well. I'm excited to see, the NFT projects and the meme coin guys like 9 Inch come online, not so much because I like those things, but because I'm interested to see what those boys can do in terms of, bringing around, new types of speculation to PulseChain. I'm excited to see that come online as well. I'm very excited to see, this movie come out. I didn't really think it was going to do too much. But I think because of all these headlines, if the movie were a coin, it's a coin that I would have been buying pretty heavily this week. So I think these guys, the people that probably funded it, are probably we're probably looking at losing a lot of money on it. I think they're now going to make a lot of money on it, which is great for them. I think that's great news. I'm excited to see how Richard reacts to this. It's very cool to see him tweet something substantial just in the past hour. I think for Richard, it made
he's not going anywhere, evidently, right?
Yeah, he's not, and I think for Richard, it made a lot of sense for him to be very quiet the last year. Keep your head down. Don't give them any evidence, right? Let them make a move. So that's what he was clearly doing. And now they've made their move. And, now Richard has the option to go through this quietly with lawyers or whatever, but he gets to make his counter moves. And that may involve him, picking his moment and getting more vocal. So, we may see, we may actually see Richard, get more active now. It's a possibility. So I think I'm excited about that.
That's interesting. I wanted to bring that up while you're talking. Sorry to interrupt, but it might have been like last Friday's space. You mentioned to be like, hey, we might not see him this year. We might not hear too much, like every now and then. So with Monday's events, do you think that changes that scenario and we do actually end up hearing more now if this is out of the way?
I think so. I mean, if I'm Richard, my strategy is going to be obviously to be very careful with my words. Obviously you're going to do most of this through lawyers, but you do want to get in the bully pulpit and make this about crypto, about an unfair, basically erroneous attack, character defamation against a fellow crypto community. He should use that bully pulpit very well. He knows exactly how to do that. He's very effective at that. He doesn't have to speak a word about Hex or Pulse or PulseX. When I talked to him, last time I talked to him was in a Twitter space that he did right after he got downgraded during the Elon Kim.com thing. I said, hey, Richard, I think, this is really your medium and this is your moment. And he kind of said, thank you, and it ignored me. But now I kind of get why. That was probably going on at a time where he realized that this SEC suit was coming, and his lawyers basically just told him, hey, keep your head down. Hopefully they won't come after you, right? But now that they've come after him, now I think it's appropriate to basically get more vocal, be measured, of course, but really try to build friendships across the rest of crypto by espousing those mutual values that we all care about. I think the main thing is like he needs to kind of, and we as a community kind of need to like figure out ways to basically refute this argument that Hexicans are victims of Richard. We're not. Full stop. That the sacrifice people are victims. They're not. The people that sacrificed, I'm one of them. We went into this being explained very well what we were getting into, and Richard's delivered it by and large, right? Slight differences in the tech specs, but that happens, right? Like he did what he thought was best in the end. And that's actually good. I'm really glad that it turned out that way. For probably more technical reasons. So
like imposing something as the whole 3-day rule for money managers, it's like the wait 3 days kind of thing to let news settle, and then you find out what's up and you make better decisions. Maybe he does a 3-day, 3-week, 3-month, but you let people come out after this news is out and see where they stand. So Hayden Adams, she's an enemy, obviously. MetaMask, and of course we know Wallet could be in the works. BitBoy has come out in support. Even the likes of Altcoin Daily. This is an interesting bond that is slowly, but I guess rapidly formed within the past 48 hours. I mean, it's quite interesting to see, because I think as more people understand that this is DeFi versus the SEC, as you said in your tweet, instead of Richard versus the SEC, you'll find out who your friends are, as they say, and this is it right now. Like, we're gonna find out this week. Yeah.
There's like so much historical precedent for this. I think the best one, the most famous one, is the ancient Greeks, right? They all fucking hated each other. Each city-state in ancient Greece, the Spartans, the Athenians, whatever, they basically were at war with each other constantly. Nobody liked the Spartans because ancient Sparta was fucking weird. Okay, they were like the North Korea of ancient Greece, right? They would take your kids away from you and put them in the military at a young age. They did all sorts of crazy shit there. Nobody liked Sparta. Right. Okay. In ancient Greece, it took the Persians coming in and attacking Greece to suddenly get them all to actually stop fighting each other and go, okay, fuck you, Persia. Okay. Darius or Xerxes, like, fuck you. We're Greeks now. We're not going to put up with that. And the Spartans are literally at the Battle of Thermopylae, the epitome of this. We're going to make a collective stand, and we're going to, we're going to put up a fight for the good of, Greece, right? This is what that movie with Gerard Butler, with all the ripped guys with, dying, is about, right? The 300 movie. I'm trying to explain this to Dylan, but this is actually this movie is actually based on a real battle, that battle is significant in history because if the Spartans hadn't made a stand there, Persia would have come in and wiped out ancient Greece. And ancient Greece was the beginning of Western civilization, right? So everything that you guys value would have, as Western civilization would have never happened. Alex has his head down. If the Spartans hadn't made their stand, and if the Greeks hadn't gotten together and said, we're not going to put up with this. Look at this. There's a lot of good comments here.
Oh boy, which one would you like to
shortage of history lessons?
Comments aside, I don't want to keep you gentlemen too much longer, but thank you for sticking around this long. Again, just 400 or 500 or over strong, at various points of this show, and we're all over Twitter and whatnot. I do a very bad job of shilling this thing, but it's all this show because it's about a good time, but also we call it informal but informative. So I'd like to thank our usual crowd that's here and everybody new that's here. So just a quick reset before we start to land the plane. We got the Highest of Stakes documentary coming out. By we, I mean the community. It's out there. Like, this was done independent of Richard. Is not a puff piece. It is from all sides, and I'm really excited about that because there are very vocal skeptics from what I can tell. There's the good times and the bad times, and questions abound in this documentary. And again, I haven't seen it. I'm just going by the trailers and some of the footage. I'm one that doesn't like to see too much footage going into a movie. I like to be surprised when I'm in a theater, if I do such a thing. So that comes out this weekend. If you're in a big city, check your local theaters. A lot of shows are sold out. Matty Allen, just look him up on YouTube. MATI space ALLIN is running a 48-hour streaming event this weekend. I'm sure pretty much any and every personality you could think of will be speaking at that. So that'll span over the premiere. So that's going to be a fun time. And speaking of premieres, what I want to get to, Alex, is you were one of the first to, I don't want to say like the first, but you know, had a very early showing / viewing of this. Could you just give us, I guess, your quick take on this? What, you came away with? I'm like everything I've heard. Like I said, it's not a puff piece. It comes from every angle. It's, how do you feel about it?
Were the sex scenes gratuitous, Alex? I think you told me that, right?
Oh, there's
Which
so
version?
Bad. So bad. There's so many sex scenes. No, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know if what I saw is actually going to be, what you guys see.
Like the final cut, right?
Yeah, but it's I'm going to assume it's pretty close. And I think it doesn't really matter who you are. I think if you're into this community, you'll enjoy it. If you're not in the community, you probably still enjoy it. Like there's something to take away no matter where you are. It's very neutral. So I think it will do very well. I think it'll be well received, and I'm excited to actually see the final cut of it. And before we go, because I actually do have to get out of here real quick, but the one question I've seen asked a lot in the chat that I didn't have a chance to address is like, why build on PulseChain? Why come to PulseChain and do cool stuff? Well, Buck has a DEX called Fux on PulseChain, and was it yesterday? I think it was like number 4 out of all DEXs by volume, like across.
It's spelled PHUX. PHUX, by the way.
Like the volumes here. There's a lot of very talented people building here. People building oracles, people building protocols, coins, whatever, DEXs, NFT marketplaces. Like, there's a lot happening here. It's a lot bigger than a lot of people think it is. And to me, that sounds like an area of opportunity compared to like why build on something like Ethereum, where a lot of the opportunity is either not there or it's so expensive to transact that it's not worth doing there. So I think there's a lot of good things happening on Pulse. I think this movie is going to be great. I think you guys will all like it, and I'm excited for the future.
Well, thank you for that. And I know this stream chat has been excited for you to be here, as evidenced by the viewers. Of course, most of them are here for Dylan, but I do appreciate you coming by. If you need to jet. But before you do, please feel free to shill. I got one last question for Buck if you have time to stick around. But yeah, just tell us anything that you got going on, or you're just going to be building.
Oh, is that for me or Alex?
That was for Alex. Like if he was signing out.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I thought it was for Buck.
No, we know what I'm doing. We don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. I think I've said everything I can say about what I'm doing. It's unification, and you all see what that means.
That's all you get, Cabana.
Cryptic. I love it.
What I know about what Alex is doing is pretty cool. I'll say that, guys.
There you go. And
I've read the cryptic tweets, and I love them. So keep them coming. It's my job to ask.
And to comment on a little bit of what Alex was saying earlier about the liquidity pools and stuff like that, we're kind of reset back to the V1 Uniswap days, right? Where we were essentially a levered play on the volatility of Ethereum, right? So, we used to see where you would get more buy volume than sell volume, but the price would still fall because Ethereum was falling in price. Because, if you guys were around in the early days of Hex, all we had was Uniswap V1, which Uniswap V1, the pools consisted of your token and then Ethereum only, right? You couldn't do, Hex to USDC at the time. It was only Hex to Ethereum. And it wasn't even wrapped Ethereum. It was just regular old Ethereum, right? And, every coin basically was volatile on on top of ETH. It was just a play on ETH, right? And then, Richard Hart realized, like, okay, well, Hart's Law is a real thing, right? Obviously, we're experiencing it when people are buying more hex than they're selling, and the price is going down, right? And now we're seeing that on PulseChain, and we're back to square one, like the olden days, right? And like Alex was saying earlier, we were discussing this in a private chat where, hey, there's $400,000 more net buy pressure on Hex, but yet we're still falling. Well, it's because all of the liquidity is tied to Hex or to Pulse, right? And Pulse is hemorrhaging money at the moment. So it would be interesting to see people who care about Hex, start beefing up the USDC side or the DAI side liquidity for Hex on PulseChain if they cared about it. Like I might start doing that just because I really like Hex. But again,
and you have been patient with your capital, sir.
Oh yes,
so you've been waiting for this PulseChain moment.
That's yes. Now, okay, so the thought process that I had, because I'm not Nostradamus, and I did not predict that the SEC would serve anybody, okay, right, or sue Richard, right? I just had the general idea that okay, the chain is out. We've been waiting a while. This community is very sticky, and they're very stubborn. So I think a time-based period to wait for people to slowly start getting out and getting bored. I figured 3 months was okay. Hey, I'll wait 3 months and see what happens, and maybe other people will start to get antsy and then start to want to offload after that mark, right? Just a time-based kind of thing, right? That was my thought process. And then it just so happened that a lot of these DeFi guys are coming out in August. Like the PH guys, we're coming out with with stuff in August. The liquid loans guys, I believe they're coming out in September. It'd be great if it was in August too, right? So there is the DeFi element of buying in August and having like a nice month, right? And
I think the Coast guys will be out this week.
There you go.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a lot of stuff like that coming.
Yeah. See, and these things, they turn PulseChain into a vibrant community and a vibrant ecosystem, right? Because right now, as we know, we've said this on pretty much every stream we go on, but right now, PulseChain is, it's an L1 and then a DEX. You can buy, send, sell, and receive stuff. Okay. That's pretty much all you can do at the moment. Okay. And you can lock your liquidity up, which everyone loves to lock up their liquidity, even though they don't know what the hell they're doing. Okay. Just lock that shit up, which is fine. Everyone's learning. And people will make mistakes and other people will profit off of those mistakes. But regardless, now we're going to start to turn into a chain that people will see has value. People will see the economic activity. People will notice that now, even with the SEC breathing down Richard's neck, the chain is doing its own thing. It's still successful. It's still a vibrant, economic system. It's, still working, right? It's permissionless. You can't stop it. It is the purest form of crypto, quite literally, right? And that's pretty powerful. So, now that August is here, and if those people that believed in the same thing that I did, sitting on capital and being ready for moments like this, hey, I think the L1 for this entire ecosystem probably isn't, this is a steep discount, perhaps, in my opinion, right? I don't know if we can actually, go down much lower. Perhaps we can. Right. I'm good. I'm okay to be greedy, but I do think that we're going to have a great month this month. I mean, hey, even with all of this uncertainty, I think once the community settles down and kind of really processes what's going on and realizes, well, hey, it's not really that bad. I really do think that we'll have a great month this month, and it just it really goes to show also that this DeFi stuff will also be a factor in that great month playing out, right? And before all of this shit happened, I was fine with not actually buying the bottom, but just buying the hype of the DeFi and being involved in that meat of perceived value accrual on the chain, right? Because obviously the economic activity on this chain makes it valuable inherently, right? Not just a speculation of if we're the SEC shit right now, right? So but yeah, I'll even state this what I said earlier. The SEC stuff really doesn't change much. There is no CEXs that support us at the moment. There probably never will be, which is fine. We're probably going to be subservient to Ethereum like a tumor, as Buck always says. And it's just an extra step to get on PulseChain and to continue doing the DeFi that we've all been a part of since the beginning anyways, right? None of us bought Hex, really. The vast majority of us, I won't say none of us, but the vast majority of us, we didn't ever buy Hex on a centralized exchange. We basically all went on Uniswap to buy Hex, right? And now we're going to all go on PulseChain, over the bridge to go buy Hex. And, now we can use Coast. Perhaps there's going to be other solutions like Coast. And then we can have that decentralized factor in that sort of way. So it's not just, a bottleneck per se, but it's just, we're doing the same thing that we've always done, guys. Like what's changed really, like, let's be honest with ourselves. So I'm excited for August and the rest of the year, actually. So, yep.
Nice. So I guess the last point or topic real quick I wanted to bring up for Buck, and this is something you said on plenty of spaces, I'd say in recent weeks, but as I always say, different viewers tune in at different times. Not everybody's on Twitter. Not everybody's available at the same time, but a very important point that you brought up, and I'd just like you to touch on here before we head out, is, yes, PulseChain can, especially now, can perform very nicely from these levels. PulseX can perform very nicely from these levels, but there is the possibility that some of these others, and I'm not going to say all, but if you are selective and you happen to invest in the right places, some really nice gains can be had, possibly, from many of these other secondary projects that are built on PulseChain. I just wanted to touch on that for a minute because, like I said, many people probably haven't heard you talk about this, and I think it's very important at this stage, especially with the next month or two coming up.
Yeah, okay, sure. So I guess you made one point already for me, which is the upside potential of Pulse and PulseX is now increased, by like twofold, right? So since we've dropped so much, so if you like potential upside, you've got a lot more of it now, and we're up 30% today, that there was already a pretty good opportunity yesterday. You may get another opportunity again in the future, but that's an important thing to keep in mind in terms of what's coming. I think nobody cares about these third-party builders. The community doesn't do a very good job of promoting them. They attack us a lot. People outside of the community don't really care about or know that we're building these things. But what I predict will happen is that some of them are going to be very successful, and that will start to get people's attention. PHUX has been pretty successful and done quite well. It's done $87 million worth of volume. It shows up on the CoinGecko terminal as one of the top dexes over the past 24 hours, which is kind of funny. I don't think that's always going to be the case, guys. That probably has more to do with just there being a lot of volatility on PulseChain yesterday. But it was nice of Alex to point it out. But yeah, it's there are going to be some huge winners and a lot of losers. if you want to make bigger gains in crypto, you need to take more risk. That's just a rule of investment everywhere you go. But yeah, there will be some very good projects out there that really surprise people, I think, and throw up some pretty impressive numbers. And I think what I want the community to take away from that is stop being jealous about it. Be happy for the people that got those returns, because those returns are advertising your chain. They're what the smart people like Eric Wall are looking at when they're looking at chains. They're looking at what's actually being built for it. These guys will never care about Hex, but they will care about potentially a GMX fork, that does lots of volume and creates lots of fees. They will potentially care a lot about a liquidity fork that becomes bigger than liquidity itself, right? And that could actually happen, I think, quite easily. So they're gonna look at all these things, and that's what they're gonna care about. Might not be what you care about as an RH Maxi, but the outsiders who we need to bring into the community, seduce into the community, are going to be more likely to come in because of something else that has nothing to do with Richard, than like you convincing them of T-shares. And that's okay, because when they come in and they transact on PulseChain, they're basically adding incremental value to Pulse and PulseX and Hex anyway, right? So that's really all we need. We don't need these guys to ever stake Hex ever, to be honest. Hex will be fine so long as we get these people over using PulseChain. And one thing I think that people don't understand is that in addition to being a very expensive place to transact, that where most DeFi protocols probably don't really have a future unless they figure out how to scale it properly, Ethereum is going to also probably potentially be a place that's heavily censored and censors itself, and starts to unfortunately walk away from a lot of these DeFi or these kind of DeFi crypto values, and that means you're not going to have the fun speculation anymore. You're not going to have the massive gains there. I think that can happen on PulseChain, and we should lean into it and embrace it. There will be things that outperform Richard Hart coins. There will be many things that outperform Richard Hart coins. That's fine. That's okay. That's not a knock on Richard Hart coins. Richard Hart coins are the blue chips of PulseChain. They're already valued in the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, right? The things that are going to do 10,000x are going to be smaller market cap, newer, riskier things. That's just the way it works. So to summarize that, a win for anybody on PulseChain is a win for all of us in reality. And that's going to draw more attention to us as well. If you see a builder out there, be happy that they're there. If you see a new person come to the community making something useful, be nice to them. Don't scare them away, or call them a scammer, or attack them. We need.
Well, now more than ever, right? I mean, with
Absolutely.
the recent events that have transpired over the past 48, 72 hours ish, like the spotlight is fully on us now. So be welcoming, cordial, ask questions, do everything that Buck just said there. Like this is an entire blockchain, and if you just own Hex, that's cool too. But let it be known that if people come to PulseChain, they could also see how good Hex is as well, through some other means. So just things to think about. It's not just one toy. This is an entire playground that we're working with here, which is the exciting part.
Yeah, and I mean, Hex can be the seesaw, but we need a jungle gym and a soccer field and a baseball mound, to play kickball. You know, we need to have all the different toys for the kids. You know, not just one toy. That's a shitty playground. Nobody wants to go to that playground.
That was Dylan's playground before he got all Gucci'd up. So.
Dylan
right.
grew up in a place with a tire swing in the backyard. You know,
hey man, don't knock the tire string till you try it.
Yeah, that's definitely a tire swing on a either on a tree or I don't know.
Down by the river, man. Down by the river.
Yeah. In a trailer down by the river.
Shout out Eric Wall. All right. So, well, gents, thank you again. Well, first of all, thanks to Alex because he was first one out just a little bit ago. But if you missed it, Alex was here, and it was a great conversation. Of course, with Dylan and Buck. Big K, co-host of the show, could not make it tonight because he's getting fitted for his fancy suit for tomorrow night at the world premiere of The Highest of Stakes. So he messaged me, and that's what he's doing tonight. So good on you, Big K. Also a producer, by the way, and kind of an initial skeptic of Richard Hart in the film. That's why it's going to be really cool to watch. So shout out to all those guys, and like I said, Dylan and Buck for coming by here. As we close out here, and again, like we're at the end of this show, and we've had the most viewers we've ever had, and like we've had pretty much the worst dip that we've ever had in the past 48 hours. What do you guys got going on that you can tell us about? I know you alluded to it earlier, but for those who came in late, what's going on with the PH ecosystem, and where can people find you to learn more about it? Like I said, we're all over Twitter, Facebook, YouTube right now, so let us know. I'll go with you, BB Trippin.
Oh yes, you can find me on Twitter at BB_Trippin. We all know what that stands for. Okay. I'll let Buck talk about, summarize the upcomings that we have.
Yeah, right. So we're going to be launching, Fiat any day now. I'm probably going to do it sometime next week, I think, just based on the events that are going on currently. But yeah, it's ready. In terms of fame, I think it's coming over, sometime in August. We're just finishing up the initial prelims of the audit. So that'll be leverage trading on PulseChain. So, ideally you'll be able to leverage into this dip at some point very soon, which some of you may feel like doing. And then you really brave boys out there will be able to short it as well. So make sure to go out and, next time people talk shit, once these products are out, that you give them a link to Fiat or a link to Fame and say, hey, put your money where your mouth is. If you believe that, because I think that can be quite entertaining. I wouldn't want to short Hex here, just quietly. I don't think that would be a smart thing to do. PHUX, big surprise for us in terms of how successful it's been and how relevant it's been. We just got listed on CoinGecko terminal, which is a competitor to Dex Screener. It's actually really nice. It's better than Dex Screener, I think. Check that out. We're creeping up towards 100 million in volume. So that's really surprised me at how successful that's been. I think there's pretty good product market fit. We'll be doing more airdrops for that next week. So I'll announce the details of who's eligible for that probably sometime next week. I think Dylan and I are talking in the conference maybe at some point. I think we're slated for some spot there. But yeah, we're not deterred. I got together with the core team yesterday. We didn't even talk about the SEC. Like we just talked about what we're doing.
Full speed ahead, like I said earlier. It's like you're here, Alex is here, like two of the biggest, I would say, founders or builders on PulseChain, this ecosystem. Everything's just moving along. Yep.
That's right. Yeah. The boys looked at this and were like, "This sounds like a very flimsy case that they've they've made against Richard, and that was about all. That was kind of all we thought about it. So yeah, we're really excited for the future here. And if people want to panic, never let a good crisis go to waste. If you still believe in PulseChain, and the price keeps going down, that's your opportunity to buy well. I'm somebody that bought Hex in around New Year's 2020, when the same people were shitting all over Richard that are currently shitting all over him today, and it worked out very well for me. I'm also somebody that bought Ripple after a minus 50% that it did when the SEC case came out. I may have bought something a few hours ago. Who knows? That's time.
Thank you for that little update there. Well, gents, again, one last thank you to everybody that has tuned into the stream. This has been just absolutely outstanding. I love it I love these destination streams where I just kind of like throw topic lists together and let the minds just take over the show instead of the in-studio stuff where run things a little differently. Yeah, we're a little more entertaining and jovial perhaps, but I love these streams, and apparently you guys did too. I mean, just blew the viewership out of the water. So thank you one more time, everybody out there. We got the highest of stakes this weekend. So many things. Just full steam ahead on PulseChain. This is going to be absolutely outstanding. Maddie's conference. Tune into that. Maddie Allen, MATI space ALLIN YouTube. Alex Buck said, Dylan will be there. I think hopefully Alex will be as well. Pretty much anybody you can think of, I think is going to try to be there. And of course, the wind picks up as I start talking again. But thanks again, everybody. This has just been a cool conversation to have, and just a pleasure to be a part of such a community, especially after events in recent days. And full steam ahead, guys. So cheers, everybody.
Thanks, Cabana.
Thank you.